We start off with a static shot, a dusty hat in the foreground, a man in the background. He walks up, picks up the hat, and as he lifts it, the camera tilts up, revealing the shadow of the man putting it on. Another man suddenly enters the frame, stealing our attention from the shadow. He walks off to the right, pulling the camera with him, before handing it off to a third person. That third person finally carries us into a full 180, revealing our main character. This little sequence, directed by Steven Spielberg in Indiana Jones, is what I'd call the foundation of modern oners, which are long, uninterrupted takes that unfold in real time. The camera never cuts, and every moment feels alive and intentional. In this video, I'm gonna break down a few action sequences from both movies and games to see how directors craft engaging oners, and I'll show you how I've used some of these same ideas in my own animated shots. This isn't a deep dive into the technical side of shooting oners in live action because I'm not too experienced in that field. What I do have is a digital camera, a 3D scene, and my imagination. The good news, the concepts we're talking about are universal. Let's go back to the Indiana Jones clip.
Russians.
One of the most important principles of great oners is motivated camera movement. That's when the camera moves because something in the scene makes it move. In the Jones shot, the camera tilts up because Indy picks up his hat. When the soldier walks into frame, the camera pans because they draw our attention. The movement always has a reason. Now imagine if the camera just decided to pan 180 degrees on its own to reveal Indy. No characters, no cues, just an autonomous camera. That might work for a show like The Office or Succession, where the camera is part of the scene, like an unseen documentary crew reacting to the chaos. But in a cinematic action sequence, that breaks the illusion. We don't want to feel a camera operator lurking in the room. We want to feel like we're inside the story. So instead of letting the camera move freely, directors introduce elements or characters that motivate those moves, leading the camera naturally to its next subject. When done right, you don't even notice it, you just feel it. Of course, not every situation allows for this. Sometimes you need the camera to move without an anchor. That's where other filmmaking techniques come into play. Case in point, extraction. In this scene, we track a police officer walking down a dim hallway. He glances left, a small action that preps us for what's coming. Out of nowhere, the camera stays locked on the policeman as he's thrown against the wall. He's leading us through the scene. Then the boy is revealed. Notice how the camera doesn't just float around. It's being pulled by the action. Now watch this moment. The boy looks off screen, terrified. The camera whip pans to Tyler. But is that an unmotivated camera move? Not really. Think of it like this. If your friend suddenly stares at something behind you, you'd naturally turn to look. That's what's happening here. The boy's gaze motivates the camera to follow, and that gets us right back into the action with Tyler. This same move happens multiple times throughout the fight. The camera can be motivated by direct or indirect action from the characters on screen. Like in this scene, where the camera's whip pan to the chasing officer is motivated by the boy running out of frame. At the same time, it can also be motivated by sound cues from the officer, like footsteps or voice lines. Now let's compare that to the famous church scene from Kingsman. This scene is pure chaos. It's a ballet of violence shot to feel like a long continuous take. But let's look at a small section. Harry fights one guy, another barges in and pushes the first guy through a window. For a moment, Harry's out of frame. And what does the camera do? It pans to two random people before tilting up to Harry. That move is not motivated by anything. And in a scene this chaotic, it risks confusing the audience because the camera is suddenly choosing where to look on its own. Every camera move should be justified by something, an action, a reaction, or even a sound. Otherwise, it can feel like the camera is just showing off. That said, this sequence as a whole is masterfully crafted. Despite the chaos, the filmmakers maintain our focus by always anchoring us to one character at a time. We might see other fights happening in the background, but Harry's always the center of attention. Quick reveals and exits keep the energy high while hiding the clever stitch points, which are basically those invisible cuts that connect multiple shorter takes to create the illusion of one continuous shot. Camera placement isn't just about coverage, it's also about storytelling. Here's a fight scene I animated myself. Throughout the fight, the balance of power keeps shifting. The big guy starts off dominating, then the smaller fighter gains control for a moment before losing it again. Each time the upper hand changes, so does who leads the fight. When the big guy's winning, he's in the foreground, commanding the frame. The moment the smaller fighter lands a clean hit, he takes control, pulling the camera with him. When his attack stops working, the focus shifts back to the big guy, and the camera follows his movement. Notice how the camera itself isn't doing anything fancy. It's simply responding to the rhythm of the fight. The action drives the cinematography. Another key technique for oneers is bridging the distance, using the characters or objects in your scene to move the camera from one point to another naturally. Take God of War, technically a game but directed like a movie. Kratos picks up Baldur while the camera pulls back to reveal Atreus. Kratos leaps off a cliff and Atreus follows. We need to go from Atreus' perspective to Kratos. But how? Atreus fires an arrow. That arrow becomes the transition, guiding our focus across space until we land on Kratos mid-fall. Seamless, logical, cinematic. I used a similar trick in my short film, The Cursed Bounty. A character slides across the ground and reaches for an artifact, but it's too far away, so she flings her bag, which leads the camera's motion to the artifact, then back to her as she grabs it. This technique comes in various forms. It doesn't really matter what leads the camera as long as it's done in a believable way. We can even trace this back to the Indiana Jones clip I showed at the beginning of this video. Two different people came into frame to lead up to the reveal of our main character. It's all about creating a chain of motivated movement to keep the audience oriented. Compare that to The Atomic Blonde. There's a brilliant fight scene that goes on for nearly 10 minutes, but within it, there are a few moments where the camera moves without any clear motivation. We see Lorraine take out the first guy. We stay focused on the second guy as she continues to fire at him off screen. The guy shoots at her, prompting the camera to turn and push into her as she hides behind cover. We see the guy walk in, shoots, and get into cover. Then the camera wraps around again to show them back to back. The camera then moves and wraps around for the third time, this time around the guy as the fight continues. My main issue with this scene, if you haven't guessed already, is the amount of autonomy the camera has. Right here, where the guy shoots and the camera turns to Lorraine. There's nothing really leading the camera to go from here to here. Remember the God of War clip? It took an arrow from Atreus to lead us from point A to point B, but here there's no arrow, so to say. It happens again. We see the guy shoot and go into cover, but the camera stays in place. Only after he's behind cover does the camera move into this position. Notice that there's nothing leading the camera in this move. It happens a third time. The camera moves on its own to wrap around the guy with nothing leading it. But there's a better way they could have done this using the techniques we talked about in this video. You could stay on the guy after he shoots at Lorraine and have him lead the camera as he goes into cover. That will lead us nicely into this framing that we're going for. From here, you could have either of them come out of cover to engage the other, and whoever comes out first could lead the camera into the action. The same choreography would have felt smoother and more grounded. The point isn't that it's wrong. Atomic Blonde is still an incredible example of modern one-take action, but it's a reminder that intention matters. Every camera move is a choice, and every choice tells the audience something. None of the techniques in this videos are hard rules. They're more like guidelines, ways to keep your camera movements feeling natural, motivated, and cinematic. At the end of the day, the only rule you have to follow is the rule of cool. If it looks good, feels right, and tells your story, you're doing it right. I had a ton of fun making this video. Let me know if you want to see more breakdowns like this in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.